Hello, guys. So today we're continuing on our series about the Hermetic principles. We're on the fifth principle, which is the principle of rhythm. So, short description of the principle of rhythm: everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. So you see rhythm in everything. And this is where you see two previous principles that we talked about, which is the principle of vibration, how the world is made of energy that vibrates at different frequencies, different rhythms, different motion, up and down. That's the pendulum that's moving left and right. There's a motion between, but also when you think about the pendulum, there's a motion between two poles. So it's the concept of polarity. And so, can we use rhythm for? Well, we understand that everything has rhythm, from the seasons, from the days and night, to the seasons, to the movement of the constellations, to even sometimes our moods, and to the movement. And it's interesting understanding that, the same way that the moon influenced the movement of water, those moons, those constellation. There's those outside forces that also influence our moods in different ways. I was thinking about how I think I was researching, not researching, but came across the idea of during moons or blood moons or full moons. People in medic field, they had come to this understanding that's when the patient started going crazy or something, as if the phases of the moons had influence on people. So you see all different rhythms that works together, even the movement of the sun, how they affect the temperature, right? Summer, to different summer, autumn, spring, winter, right? And so there's all different patterns, all different rhythms that work together. And understanding those rhythms, we can actually kind of see in the future what are the different forces that might apply themselves to the world and to ourselves, right? How to navigate those rhythms. It's the concept of knowing the times and the shift of ages. So, and you can even see different rhythms when it comes to economically, politically. Right now, there's this idea that the youth is becoming more and more Gen Z, more conservative. When the millennials were more liberal. So there's this movement of the pendulum. And so, again, when I talk about the movement of the constellation, you see there's a concept of ages, right? In the Bible, it talks about the Maseroth, that the Maseroth, that's a calendar in the sky. Job 38:32, can you bring forth a constellation in their seasons? Its constellation describes different ages, different times that has different properties to them, different energies that they give to the people living under them. And so we also see this concept of shifts of ages, which is really understandable to know right now because Yeshua, when he said at the end of an age, right, he came at the end of the age that was 2,000 years ago. Because 2,000 years ago, there was a shift from the age of the ram to Pisces, the two fish, the Pisces, the fishes of men. That was like 2,000 years. And now we stepped into the age of Aquarius. So you see different rhythms, different forces that are in movements. And what you see also is what wars and rumors of war, pestilences, nations against nations, peoples against people. Those are signs that we're shifting, we're moving from. There's a rhythm, there's a shift of ages. But we don't only see it in the constellation and the astral forces, but also politically in nations, in empires, the birth and death of nations, which there's a funny chart that, well, not funny, but interesting chart that I found when you probably heard this idea that the empires live around 240, 250 years, that empires have a lifespan of around 250 years. So there's this chart that talks about Assyria, 247 years, Persia, 208, Greece, 231, the Roman Republic, the Roman Empire, the Arab Empire, the Mamluk Empire, Ottoman Empire, Spain, the Roman of Russia, and Britain. All things that have been existing around maybe 200 and 260 years, an average of 250 years. And you see America right now, which 1776 in July. So in July, it'll be 250 years. We'll reach the point where you see what's happening in America. There's a whole lot of shifts, a whole lot of darkness, but it's kind of this, we see this rise and this fall of empires. And so even in the different ages, when it comes to those empires, there's the age of pioneers, right? The age of conquest, then commerce, then there's affluence, the age of intellect, and then there's decadence. And there's always the same patterns when it comes to decadence. There's pessimism, materialism, frivolity, and an influx of foreigners, the welfare state, a weakening of religions, all things that you see right now in America. Another form of rhythm is this saying that you've probably already heard: hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And so, again, you see that many of the aspects of our reality are governed by these laws of rhythm. In the even in your life right now, when you make a pendulum move, imagine what am I talking about is habits, right? Routines can be a form of rhythm that you have, and you step into it, and sometimes it can become cyclical, and it produces a certain move, a certain pattern, and certain results. And so the Kybalion also has this quote concerning there's another principle, another law, which is called the law of neutrality. It's how to kind of, in a certain way, not be uh, moved left and right so much by these forces. And the way it talks about them, this rhythm, it kind of reminds me of being moved by our emotion, being moved by the waves. The disciples, Yeshua, who was kind of at rest in the boat, while the disciples were going crazy in the middle of the storm when they were on the boat. They were going left and right. They were panicking. They were letting the outside circumstances guide, the outside forces guide their inner state, their moves. And sometimes, we realize we have joyous times, depressive time, highs and lows and highs and lows. And there could actually be the possibility for us, something that I've starting to experience in my life, where I'm not moved to the polarities, whether it's political polarities and emotional polarities, so much, thanks to certain spiritual practices that I've started applying in my life, like meditation, right? Self observation, observing the things that are happening outside of me, and before I react to it, looking inside of it, what are the things, what are the forces, the egoic constructs inside of me that are acting up, that I want to answer to that, right? And so I'm not like a dog that's being led by a leash left and right. Or even the casting out of demons, which sometimes function as masters that try to put a leash around you, and they guide you, and they keep you in certain patterns of thoughts, of mind, of action, and let it go. All of those things kind of allow you to raise yourself at a different height, at the different level of frequency, where the law of rhythm, which keeps happening, well, it's like going on the roof of a house while the house is starting to get flooded. Sometimes there are flash floods. I heard about that concept, right? Sometimes flash floods, where sometimes there's the water, there's something that happens, water, and the ground isn't able to soak the water. So what happens, it kind of converges and it creates these flash floods. Sometimes those things happen, right? And imagine there's one of those floods happening, and instead of being taken up by the current, you go up the house, go to the top of the roof, and you're like, okay, I'm at peace. I can be at peace, even though people, and then you see, well, that's a kind of a bad image, but people being swept around left and right. So that's called the law of neutrality. Here's a quote: they apply the mental law of neutralization, talk about certain masters or even people who are starting to get a grasp of those mystical laws. They cannot annul the principle or cause it to cease its operation. All individuals who have attained any degree of self mastery do this to a certain degree, more or less unconsciously, but the master does this consciously, and by the use of his will, and attains a degree of poise and mental firmness almost impossible of belief on the part of the masses, who are swung backward and forward like a pendulum. Again, during the storm in the biblical text, Yeshua and the disciples. Interesting parallel. Perfect parallel, actually. So yeah, so according to the Kybalion, this principle of rhythm affects us at the unconscious level. So all of the inner parts of us that are unconscious, that are being triggered without us knowing, if we start taking a last time where we ask ourselves, trigger, oh, what's happening inside, and take a time to pause and look, you can kind of unbind those hooks slowly and surely and be less, slowly and surely be less manipulated by that rhythm. So, yeah, not allow our moods or feeling our emotion to carry us unconsciously. Not learning how to be swung left and right, especially when, maybe a spiritual practice that you could take is just cutting out outside media or closing your social media, right? Because what happens is there's a storm outside. There's, oh, COVID, shoot, takes people left and right. Go buy this, go buy that, and then maybe there's a better news, right? And you feel good. Oh, it's like it's over. We're so back. Like the meme, it's over. We're so back. And then it's like, oh, things are getting better. Yes. And then suddenly, ooh, there's rumors of war, of this happening and that on the outside. It's like, oh no, oh, what's going on? And then things are look like they're getting better. Oh yeah. And then suddenly, oh, we're hit with the Epstein files. And now, oh no, oh, what's going on? It's over. And then something seems like it's getting better. And it's like, oh no, World War III now. And it's like constantly, if you let the outside world dictate how you feel, it's going to be this up and down and up and down and what if you're trying to accomplish in your life. Well, you're going to be swung, you're going to be controlled, and you're not going to realize this truth because it matches with the idea again, frequency, that your outside reality would match your internal frequency. So if you're led around by the nose, well, what you're going to keep manifesting around you is those same anxious situations that are kind of keep piling on, right? Because this is a way that we're never really taught how to go and seek out through meditation, through self-observation, these internal motives. We get taught how to function on the outside but not on the inside, even though the inside will also affect the external. So that act of self-mastery and elevating one's consciousness that I've experienced in my life, like when I started meditating and I realized there was a pattern of past of there was like a, when you have this sound in your ear in the background, it was the same thing, but it was like stress and anxiety that I wasn't aware of that started diluting and leaving me as I started aligning myself with the kingdom of God and, allowing the presence of God to wash these things away, to clear my soul from these anxieties, right? And so there was a time when I started, and then I realized that I had like a height of a peace that I couldn't understand. It was like, and I noticed it because I was so used to that anxiety that it had left. It was like, oh, I was like kind of looking for that anxiety. There was maybe some money issues that I've had, living paycheck to paycheck, other things relationally. But it's like because I had started that practice, I had this cover of peace that didn't leave me during a whole day, right? And it was like, and it started, the more I practiced, the more I started experiencing that. But it was weird. It was like this again. I was rising myself away from that movement of mood swings, which had become the common. It's common. You should always live with anxiety or not. It's that overwhelming peace that goes beyond understanding that scripture talks about. And so experiencing that was interesting. And so through self-observation too, realizing that there were a lot of parts of myself that would attach itself to whether it's politically or want to fight people in my mind, that they were based on narratives, beliefs that I had constructed about myself, even religious egos, especially when I was still in Christianity and trying to maybe defend Christianity against all religions and different things like this, where I had these egoic constructs that would try to consume all of their energy to try to fight others or keep me into a certain defending posture, defending mindsets. So all those things kind of try to convince others. That's a whole lot of energy that you don't want to use up. Anyways, undoing all those things slowly and surely, you're understanding that you don't have to be so polarized all the time, that you can start getting actually neutralizing that effect. Last quote. The will is superior to the conscious manifestation of this principle. Although the principle itself can never be destroyed, we may escape its effects, but the principle operates nevertheless. The pendulum ever swings, although we may escape being carried along with it. So that's all for the principle of rhythm and different ways that we can learn through your own spiritual time, spiritual practices to learn how to escape it. So hope that was useful for you. And yeah, that's all for today. Peace.